It really isn't a complicated story, really. I mean, you can see the opening of that trailer. I think you get kind of an idea of the movie that we're going to talk about here. Welcome to Time About the Movies. It is the weekend of New Year's Eve 2010, and essentially, this is our leftover show. If you're new to this is the show where I take a look at some notable movies from the past year that I did not get to cover in the regular weeks of the show. And essentially, I talk about those films in particular, and we don't have a whole lot of movies here, but some notable films regardless. And that's our first movie right here, Bitch Slap, which pretty much you can look at it and think to yourself, oh, this is clearly a Grindhouse spin-off movie. And no, it really isn't, even though it is trying to make you think that, but it really isn't. So in it, when you have three curvaceous babes, stripper Trixie, business executive Hell, and the feisty ex-con Camaro, arriving at a desert highway to steal a stash of diamonds from an underworld kingpin, things quickly spiral out of control, allegiances are switched, truths are revealed, and criminals are unmasked, and nothing is quite what it seems as the fate of the world is precariously balanced among this trio of sexy femme fatales. This is pretty much what you think it is. It's a straight-up B-movie exploitation movie that takes you back to the days of stuff like, classic movies like Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill. And it is pretty much a film that exists solely because of what Grindhouse did a couple years ago. And you have some people here, notable names in here, Aaron Cummings from Spartacus, America Olivio, you have Kevin Sorbo, Renee O'Connor, they got people... Lucy Lawless is in here too, so they pretty much grabbed everybody from Hercules and Xena. Zoe Bell, who was in Grindhouse, is in this movie as well. So, I mean, it's one of those movies where you really got to go into it knowing what you're going into. If you've seen the movie Grindhouse and you got some enjoyment out of it, you'll probably get some enjoyment out of this too. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as those movies were, but it's not a terrible movie by any means necessary. It's a film specifically tailored for that exploitation audience that loves the old 60s, 70s Grindhouse-style films. This film's definitely right up that alley, and I think if you go into it with that mindset, you can go into it having a good time with it, per se. And like I said, nothing spectacular, nothing amazing, but a fun little guilty pleasure film. It is what it is. You gotta know going into it what it is, so... Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie I have on this list here, and that is Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams, and the only new release that actually came out this weekend, that is Blue Valentine. I'm sure nothing will go wrong whatsoever, and yeah, that trailer doesn't give you a clear indication, at least early on, of what this movie really is about, and it gets pretty harsh when it needs to, but Blue Valentine depicts a married couple played by Michelle Williams and Ryan Gosling that shifts back and forth in time between their courtship and the dissolution of their marriage several years later. So it's a film that is presented in two essential linear narratives. You got a story. Like one point you'll be looking at the relationship early on, and you'll see them in the twilight of their end of their marriage overall, and it does lead to a lot of awkward and very, very precociously, certainly some very interesting, odd things about this movie, about really in terms of the whole idea of a marriage falling on the rocks. I mean, we've seen type movies like this before, One of the great examples, one of the great dark comedies, The War of the Roses, is a good example of this. We had a Reservation Road with Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. We've had Marriage Story in the years since this. I mean, this is not a new thing. It hasn't been a new thing, and it still works if you get the right people to work with. You do buy into Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams, and you do buy that they were once really in love with each other at some point, and then just they seem a lot of lost and everything. And there's definitely a lot of risque stuff in here. In fact, this thing was actually given an NC-17 rating at the beginning because of a scene depicting cunnilingus, where Gosling basically accused the MPAA of sexism and misogyny, saying there's plenty of oral scenes, sex scenes in a lot of movies when it's a man receiving it from a woman, and they're R-rated. Ours is reversed, and somehow it's perceived as pornographic. But they basically appealed the studio basically appealed the decision to get it in our rating, and it did work eventually, about 2 months after they got the original NC-17 rating, and it was essentially re-rated to a rated R movie. I think they basically did that because NC-17 is kind of like the G rating at this point in time. Nobody wants to use that rating for anything whatsoever. I mean, the G rating is pretty much dead at this point, but the NC-17 rating had been dead for several years, and the movies that tried to bring it back, like The Dreamers, didn't really do that well in general. So I guess that was their attempt to work with it, and it does work overall. And I mean, the film, it did eventually pay off for the film in the end. The movie overall, regardless of the rating, is still a really good movie with two solid performances really leading the charge. I mean, Ryan Gosling, he had this, he had All Good Things. He was having a really good He had a really good decade, starting with these two movies, and then, of course, the year after this, he would follow it up with some really big films in Drive and The Ides of March, and he would now become known as the Ryan Gosling that we know of today. It was also a big year for Michelle Williams, too. This was a big thing for Michelle Williams as well, because, most people knew her from Dawson's Creek, and this was slowly but surely her transitioning into that great Academy Award-nominated actress she would eventually become, following this up a year later with My Week of Maryland. But, yeah, it's a really good movie. It's a very tough film, but then again, from this director, Derek Cianfrance, who, of course, has done stuff like The Place Beyond the Pines, Life Between the Oceans, and he's got that new film, Wolfman, coming up. It's not really much of a surprise you could expect a film like this from him, so, yeah, it's a really good movie. Definitely check it out. So now let's get to some DC titles here. We have 3 new DC Universe animated films to take a look at, starting with our first film, Justice League Crisis on Two Earths.
Justice League Crisis on Two Earths. Nice place, Mr. President. I think I'm gonna like it here.
I'm sure he'll be just fine on this Earth. This is Justice League Crisis on Two Earths, based off of the abandoned direct-to-video feature that was supposed to be like the bridge between the original Justice League series and the upcoming Justice League Unlimited series, but never came to be, so they basically reworked it as a script here without the Justice League TV show references and made it its own film, essentially. So the premise is you have a heroic Lex Luthor from an alternate universe coming to the Justice League's universe for help against the crime syndicate, with a stacked cast in this movie, and that's going to be something we'll talk about in just a second here, but looking at the good stuff overall, the animation is once again really incredible to look at, and once again, more proof that these movies are not just typical straight-to-video movies, but can work easily potentially as theatrical releases, because they are really putting a lot of money and effort into the animation in here. And everything else in here is great. The script is top-notch from the late Dwayne McDuffie, his first script from this universe at his finest, and he would also write the scripts later on for stuff like All-Star Superman and Justice League Doom as well, before his untimely death a year after this movie came out. I mean, we've seen this type of story done before, but honestly, a guy like Dwayne McDuffie can make it work enough to not be too noticeable. Unlike the voice cast in here, which, not to say the voice cast is terrible in here, but if there's a big flaw with this movie, it's just that these new voices really don't seem to fit whatsoever. I mean, William Baldwin as Batman just seems a little too off for that character. I mean, this is coming from somebody who personifies the animated Batmans with Kevin Conroy and Tim Daly as Superman, which we'll get to them in a little bit because they have another movie this year. But Mark Harmon's Superman is just okay, but you can easily tell it's the guy from NCIS as the Man of Steel. Chris Noth as Lex Luthor just doesn't work. I mean, he thought Powers Booth's Lex Luthor was odd. This is just weird and out of place. The voice of Wonder Woman, Vanessa Marshall, it's kind of off too. I mean, you have Gina Torres already in the cast playing somebody else, and she's one of the stronger Wonder Woman performers. You could have had her play this easily, but it really does seem weird having Irwin from The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy as the voice of Wonder Woman. Now, to its credit, there are some good voice acting in here. There is some good voice acting in here. James Woods, instantly watchable, and he's really good as Owlman. And you can never go wrong with Nolan North, regardless of who he plays. It's not quite as good as The New Frontier, but a decent outing overall. A lot of good action, great animation, a good script by Dwayne McDuffie. If the voice cast had been better, this probably would have been one of their greatest films, but as it stands, a decent film, but one that should indeed be at least watched once. So that's one of the 3 movies we have from them this year. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next one, Batman Under the Red Hood. So in this one, Batman faces his ultimate challenge as the mysterious Red Hood takes Gotham City by firestorm. One part vigilante, one part criminal kingpin. Red Hood begins cleaning up Gotham with the efficiency of Batman, but without the same ethical code. Killing is an option. And when the Joker falls in the balance between the two, because of course the Joker's got to be in this, hard truths are realized and old wounds are reopened. With this one in particular, the last couple of DC animated movies weren't great, but they were definitely not as strong as some of the earliest works out there. But Under the Red Hood really was the one that catapulted it back up to where they were back with New Frontier and Gotham Knight. I mean, this is a spectacle of a film. Everything about it just works very well. It's one of DC's more perfect films they've made with this whole thing in general. And this is written by Judd Winnick, who also did The Life and Times of Juniper Lee, and it follows very true to his story. He wrote in the Batman comics, keeping the same dramatic and action-packed elements from the story. Unlike the last one, Crisis on Two Earths, this voice cast is great. Bruce Greenwood steals the show as Batman. Just when you think nobody could top Kevin Conroy, he comes pretty damn close to doing it, and it's no wonder why he actually reprised that role later on in Young Justice. Jensen Ackles from Supernatural is really good as Red Hood. John DiMaggio was really good as the Joker. Neil Patrick Harris is always going to be good, whatever you put him in. Nightwing, he's really good. The score overall is great. This is composer Christopher Drake, who actually used the inspiration for one of my favorite, not only my favorite Batman, one of my favorite Batman movies, but one of my favorite movies of all time, Mask of the Phantasm. He used that for this, and it definitely shows. He chose not to make the music as epic and melodramatic, but instead more intimate, minimal, and restrained. And he added that this was the first DC film that he had scored that didn't rely on using a large choir to make the fight scenes sound bigger. It works very well, and it plays very well to the overall elements of it. This makes this such a masterpiece in the fact that the action sequences are really good. It's beautifully animated, timed very well, not overdone by typical cliches. It's genuine, fresh, very rewarding all the time. It does great dramatic sequences here very well. This is a heavy story to tackle, and to bring it to life this way, they brought it up to the next level for them. We get a nice glimpse into the psyche of Batman that we haven't really seen done before in other adaptations of the story. And of course, we got to bring up the death scene of Jason Todd, and it's one of the best death scenes ever. The atmosphere, the acting, the pacing, the emotions, all handled perfectly well. None of it feels fake. None of it feels out of place. It's genuine, and it just works on so many levels. This is one of their best movies ever. This is one of their triumphs that they have done. Batman Under the Red Hood, everything about it just works. It's hard not to love this movie. It's definitely one of the ones that I highly recommend checking out. So let's take a look at their last film they have here, which does feature the return of Kevin Conroy and Tim Daly as Batman and Superman in Superman Batman Apocalypse. Now, you would think after Superman Batman Public Enemies, you would think that this movie would probably be one of the better movies to come out in 2010 from DC. I mean, you got Kevin Conroy and Tim Daly back as Batman and Superman. You have Summer Glau in here playing Supergirl. You have Andre Braugher in here playing Darkseid. I mean, you think you would have something really good here, but it focuses primarily on the introduction of Supergirl and her relationship with Superman, and Batman plays a supporting role. The fact that Batman is playing a supporting role in the movie where he's literally in the fucking title, that's one of the many reasons wrong with this film, but let's run down the plot. Batman discovers a mysterious teenage girl with superhuman powers and a connection to Superman, that is Supergirl. When the girl comes to the attention of Darkseid, the evil overlord of Apocalypse, events take a decidedly dangerous turn. And you would think, like I said, after Public Enemies, they would put together a movie that's just as good in the sequel, and sadly, you'd be wrong. This is the first DC Universe animated movie that I saw that I really hated. I mean, it was a massive disappointment. I mean, good lord. Again, Superman Batman is in the title. Batman is barely in the movie. It makes no sense to have his name in the title, and he's hardly in the film. That's the equivalent of what happened with Tom and Jerry with their movie, and the Lorax, what happened with his movie. I mean, it's just a lot when you see more of Supergirl in this movie than you see Batman. You should just call the movie Superman Supergirl Apocalypse. Not that hard. Secondly, the designs in here are so terrible. Supergirl looks like an emo goth chick. I mean, we just had Superman, the James Gunn Superman, come out, and the fact that they made her a party girl and it made sense for her to have a crazy dog like Crypto, that made that part in that movie very funny at the end of the film. Superman basically looks like what Robert Pattinson would have been like if he had been cast as Superman, and Batman literally looks constipated in many of the scenes that he's in. He does not feel like he wants to be there. The voice casting overall is wasted. Tim Daly and Kevin Conroy are back, but they really don't feel like they want to be there. The last movie, Public Enemies, you got a sense that they wanted to be there for this, but this, it literally felt like they were getting a paycheck for this. I mean, the late Andre Braugher is such a good actor. He should be excellent as Darkseid. Even he doesn't feel like he wants to be there. Summer Glau doesn't feel like she wants to be there as Supergirl. They brought back in Ed Asner as Granny Goodness from Superman the Animated Series, and again, it feels like he's only doing this for the paycheck. The story is weak, and really, you'd think DC would be better at adapting these stories after what they did with Under the Red Hood and Crisis on Two Earths, but no, this is a film that is just... I was flabbergasted how much I hated this movie. I was really disappointed by this. I thought DC would have had a better handling of how to adapt this, but they can't all be perfect, apparently. And Superman Batman Apocalypse, sadly, is one you can definitely skip out on big time. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at what Universal has in store in the direct-to-video market this year with Smoking Aces 2, Assassin's Ball.
They're about to live through this.
First of all, it's not a sequel. It's a prequel to the original Smoking Aces. So that's your first mistake. Number two, it literally looks like the same goddamn movie that Smoking Aces was, except instead of it being Buddy Aces from the last movie, it's an entirely different character altogether. As you have an FBI desk jockey who is targeted for murder by various hired assassins, variously played by Tom. You have characters played by Tom Berenger, Vinnie Jones, Tommy Flanagan, Autumn Reisner, Keegan Connor Tracy, and Ernie Hudson. This is quite literally the definition of a let's make a movie because Smoking Aces was a success, and we'll pretend the audience is really stupid and sell this as a sequel. I guarantee you that this movie was originally a straightforward movie called Assassin's Ball, but then it was picked up by Universal, and they said, well, I don't think people are going to sell this movie. But you know what was one of our big hits from earlier in the decade? Smoking Aces. Let's go ahead and just put Smoking Aces 2. Sir, that's a prequel. Who cares? People are stupid enough to buy into it. And this person right here in particular. But then again, it should have been a sign that this was not going to be good, considering that this is written by the same people who made The Fourth Kind. That's right. Olatunde Usanami wrote the script for this movie. And that should have been the red flag right there to stay the hell away from this. And it's not that great. I mean, it's not a bad movie, but it's definitely one of those films that was clearly another movie that was slapped on with the Smoking Aces title because they thought that was going to sell. The coolest death in the movie is when a guy is having sex with this woman who turns out to be an assassin, and he kills her, and she kills her right there. And it's just like, that's cool and all, and it's just like, that was one of the scenes they sold in the trailer for this, and if you gotta do that, then you know your movie isn't that great. But then again, I wouldn't expect less from the same director who gave us From Dusk Till Dawn. Not the original From Dusk Till Dawn, From Dusk Till Dawn 3. And also Sniper 3. And Lost Boys, The Tribe. Second one, I think. Right? Yeah, it's the second one in that series. So, yeah, not much of a shocker that this was not going to be great. So, let's see if the next Universal direct-to-video movie, Death Race 2, can change things around. I mean, there's no way that this could be the same movie as the first movie all over again, right?
He wins his freedom. 10 of those.
Of course it is. Yeah, this is pretty much another movie like Smoking Aces 2, where it's sold as a sequel. It literally has Death Race 2, but it's a prequel to Death Race. It's the prequel to it's a prequel to Death Race, but then again, the original the Jason Statham Death Race movie that came out a few years prior to this was actually a prequel to the events of Death Race 2000. So we have a prequel to a prequel, apparently. But Luke Goss stars as Carl Luke Lucas, a convicted cop killer who is sentenced to life for sentenced to life in a for-profit maximum security prison where he's forced to compete in the titular reality show to earn his freedom. Characters played by Fred Collier, Tenet Phoenix, Robin Shaw, Lauren Cohen, Danny Trejo, Ving Rhames, and Sean Bean appear in supporting roles. Cohen and Shaw reprised their roles from the Paul W.S. Anderson Death Race movie. Now, unlike Smoking Aces 2, which was literally a film that just slapped on the Smoking Aces title on it and it turned out a bad film, as much as I criticized this in the beginning, I gotta admit, this is actually one of the better direct-to-video sequels you could do out there. They actually do a pretty good job of elevating it over the previous movie. The first Death Race movie was a silly, fun, over-the-top movie, but this, they actually did a good job of elevating it to another level in terms of upping the ante with the action sequences. The cast overall is surprisingly very enjoyable. Luke Goss shows a lot of potential as a leading actor in this, and I think he's done a pretty good job in this. I mean, the film overall does a good job of sticking to what makes Death Race work, while also elevating it to a whole nother level in general in terms of what they could do with this idea. And it plays very well. There's a lot of really cool action in this movie. It's granted, it's pretty much the same movie as the first film in terms of its story, but for a direct-to-video movie, considering that this could have had easily with a much lower budget, and that means it probably could be lesser than what you would expect, this thing could easily have failed miserably, but they found a way to make it work, and it really was one of those big surprises that you really do not see coming. It's a film that surprisingly worked as well as it could have, and I gotta give them credit for that, because actually, this movie was a whole lot more fun than I could have possibly imagined, honestly. So if you like the original Death Race movie, the 2008 one, definitely give Death Race 2 a shot. It's not a sequel as it proclaims it is, but it's still a hell of a good movie overall. I really do recommend it, honestly. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to what is our last movie here, an HBO original movie with Al Pacino as Dr. Death in You Don't Know Jack. This is, of course, the true story of the life of Jack Kevorkian, who was the man who, he was known as he was often referred to as Dr. Death in the press. He assisted people's suicides, and it follows him as this former pathologist to help the terminally ill and the profoundly disabled end their lives. And he's an outspoken polarizing figure, and he's assisted by his sister, played by Brenda Vaccaro, as well as his longtime friend and medical technician, played by John Goodman, and Janet Good, played by Susan Sarandon, who founded the Middle Eastern Michigan chapter of the Hemlock Society. By accepted accounts, he aided 130 people to die, and he was unsuccessfully tried 4 times, but after taking an unprecedented direct role in the August 1998 death of his final patient, he is convicted of second-degree murder and is sentenced to 10 to 25 years in prison, where he served about 8 years before being released in June 2007. And I brought this up because this was one of those movies that Barry Levinson did with HBO and Al Pacino, because he did a couple of more movies for HBO. He did one with Robert De Niro in it called The Wizard of Lies, and then he would reteam with Pacino again later in the decade for the Paterno movie, which is another really good movie in general. And Barry Levinson and Al Pacino just worked together so well. And for a director like Barry Levinson, who had been really struggling with his theatrical releases, he did stuff, the stuff he did before this, Man of the Year, What Just Happened, Envy, Bandits, weren't very successful movies in general. And yeah, he hasn't had the same kind of success in film, but when it comes to television, he had a role going on in the 2010s, because he made 3 damn good movies for HBO. This was back when HBO made original movies, which I can't believe I even have to say this out there, because some of you may not even remember HBO did original movies back then. Because now they don't do it at all nowadays. Now it's mostly just films that go straight to HBO Max or get shipped out to theaters. But yeah, this is a movie that just works really well. It's a very well done film. A lot of really good talent all involved in this. You got James Urbaniak from the Venture Brothers in here, Adam Driver in one of his early film roles. And it's just a really slick, very impressive put-together film where you really buy into Al Pacino as Kevorkian. He plays that role so well. It's no wonder he won Emmys, Golden Globes, Screen Actors Guild Awards for this performance, because he really does knock it out of the park. He makes it work so well. It's a really good movie. It's a really good film. I highly recommend checking it out. It's definitely one of the more underrated movies Barry Levinson has ever directed. You don't know Jack. It's definitely one that you should know about. And with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and we wrap up 2010. Next time around, we'll take a look at 2011. We only got one movie, and sad to say, it's the type of movie you expect to open as the first movie release of 2011. Nicolas Cage starring in Season of the Witch, which is a film that, if you know Nicolas Cage's works at the time, it's one of those movies where he was clearly cashing a paycheck in here, and yeah, it's a film that definitely... Yeah, it's definitely worthy of the spot. We'll get to that film. That was the only big new release for the first weekend of 2011 overall, so take that for what you will. But with that said, thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist, and also check out the last episode we did. Now, with all that said, I am off. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. I completely botched the new ending here, but let's try this again. Take 2. Okay. With that said, thank you so much for watching this. Whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. There we go. We got it right. Take care.